Hello, everybody. My name is Yuri Sanada. I'm talking from Brazil. It's a sunny, beautiful morning here, but we have panelists from all over the place. So we have today 10 panelists, people from Asia, from Africa, from Europe, other places. So I start by sharing a few words about Brazil, about what we're living here in the Amazon, and then all the panelists will come and speak their own presentation, which is different topics on nature and harmony. Okay, so I'm going to show you guys a little video. And talk about the Amazon and the project we are making. The Amazon River, as everybody knows, is the most powerful river on Earth, has the more volume of water. It also has been, for some, confirmed as the longest river, even longer than the Nile, because there's a new source in the Andes, in the Peruvian mountains, ice mountains. So I think there's a lot of people concerned about nature, about all these problems we're facing today, but we don't have enough action. So what we're going to do in this project called Amazon River from Ice to Sea is to travel the whole length of the Amazon River from the ice Andes in Peru all the way to the Atlantic Ocean aboard, which is going to be very nice. We're going to be using hybrid boats, a mixture of pedal-powered and solar-powered boats, like clean energy, to do all the 7,000 kilometers. So we're going to show people that's possible to use renewable, clean energy to do a journey that long. And also, we're going to be inviting 20 scientists from all over the place, all over the world, and they're going to show us what they're doing to enhance or to make better the life of people in the Amazon. That's what I intend to do. We are planning this expedition. We have already the partnership of UN Environment, Clean Seas Campaign, and White for Life campaign, and of course Earth Odyssey as well. And we intend to show people of all ages that nature has to be preserved. We have to preserve of course, all the ecosystems, especially a place like the Amazon. And the solutions we find from the scientists there can be used in other places, in other forests in the world. So that's the project I'd like to introduce to you guys, and we are in developing this. This should happen in a year or two. But now I'm going to introduce to you Mr. Mahendra Shah. He's in Bali, and he's going to talk to us a lot more about nature. Mr. Mahendra, please.
Thank you. Welcome, everybody. You see, I have brought some nature behind me. There's a reason for it. There's a reason for my clothes, because today is a new year in India. It's the year 2076, which we are celebrating today. For 70 years, since 1972, we have talked and produced agendas for sustainable development. Actions we have not done. And we need these actions, and the lifetime of the youth today may be the final point. So let me begin by, for the listeners who have joined us, why this series of seminars? Because it's such a complex issue. People, nature, peace, harmony, it's a mixture of everything. So we decided to do a series of seminars. The first seminar we did 2 weeks ago was People, Harmony, and Peace. The human divisiveness we see. And the conclusion of that last seminar was that we must empower the youth to become action-oriented leaders. We must inspire women to join this whole movement of sustainable development. Today's seminar is about nature, harmony, and peace. Nature is under threat mainly from human activities. And if nature does not have peace within nature, we cannot expect people and nature to find the balance. The next seminar in 2 weeks will be People, Nature, Harmony, and Peace. So we are bringing the equation together. Following this, there will be a number of other seminars. Our final aim of this series of seminars is panel discussions in some 30 to 60 countries on specific issues. The panels will be 50% youth and 50% adults, including governments, business, scientists, and so on. The end aim we have is to create music events in support, let us say, for example, women, youth, nature, peace. Why music events? Well, the musical world has been wonderful to do events after a crisis. We need to start thinking how we can mobilize the music world to do events before the crisis come. And the subjects I mentioned are very much at the heart of what we are talking about. So when we talk of nature, climate, pandemics, deforestation, degradation, extinction, fires, waste, we have seen all of that in the last 9 months, where the pandemic, of course, has been the driving force. When we talk of harmony in nature, we talk of respect. I have put the word after respect, worship. Indigenous people, since time immemorial, have worshipped nature. We have much to learn from them. And of course, the whole issue of sustainability in nature. Peace. Well, when we have harmony in and with nature, then there will be peace. Without that, there cannot be peace. In 1992, at the Earth Summit, the opening 7 minutes of the Earth Summit was a short film of 7 minutes by Jacques Cousteau. Let me quote Jacques Cousteau. For most of history, man has had to fight nature to survive. In this century, he is beginning to reduce that in order to survive. He must protect it. If we look at nature, the wealth of diversity in nature lies in the variety of life and the processes and the vast array of organisms, genetic differences among them, the communities in which they live, each one dependent on the other. It is this interconnectedness, interdependency in diversity that creates tensions and synergies which lead to sustaining evolution and robust outcomes. We need to learn from nature because that is also what we need in the human diversity. The beauty of human beings is the diversity, and yet we are divided by that diversity. I want to quote from 1,000 years ago by Moses Maimonides. It should not be believed that all beings exist for the sake and the existence of man. On the contrary, other beings too have been intended for their own sake. At this stage, let me just touch on how the moderator process will work. All of us have about 6 minutes for your presentation, which will leave us 30 minutes at the end for open discussion. And please, if you have extra slides, you can come in at that point. So may I ask Yuri, please put the video. It's 1 minute and 67 seconds.
Some call me nature. Others call me Mother Nature. I've been here for over 4.5 billion years. 22,500 times longer than you. I don't really need people, but people need me. Yes, your future depends on me. When I thrive, you thrive. When I falter, you falter. Or worse. But I've been here for eons. I have fed species greater than you, and I have starved species greater than you. My oceans, my soil, my flowing streams, my forests, they all can take you or leave you. How you choose to live each day, whether you regard or disregard me, doesn't really matter to me. One way or the other. Your actions will determine your fate, not mine. I am nature. I will go on. I am prepared to evolve. Are you?
Thank you. Thank you. That is the voice of Julia Roberts. Is there an echo? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. The COVID-19 has been with us for 9 months. This has been a response of nature to all that is happening. And it is interesting that nobody is talking about the fact that the coronavirus is an intelligent virus that has known how to go to the heart of human beings and create havoc in the organs. And this is how the future looks, and we need to take action in working out how we are going to live in harmony with nature. We know that the root cause of all that is happening is human beings. And it's modern lifestyles driven by materialism, greed, power, and escalating waste. We need to realize that there cannot be sustainable development until human beings themselves individually become sustainable. So we need a global movement of how we are going to transform sustainable modern lifestyles into sustainable lifestyles. Part of that equation is 50% of the world's population women who have the characteristics to heal nature, and we need to bring them to the table. The 1992 Earth Summit, among the long list of principles that Rio principles that were put forward, there were 3 principles: the precautionary principle, the polluter pays, common but differential responsibility. We are not heeding these principles that was agreed by 192 nations. And when you think about these principles, fundamentally, they are essential to come to harmony with nature. Planet Earth is home to millions of species of living plants and animals that are at risk of survival because of the disrespect, exploitation, and violation of nature. Protecting nature is no longer an option. It is an imperative. Everyone has been talking about adopting an universal declaration of the rights of nature. We will do the same as we did with the human rights. Politicians, business, scientists, we will all sign up. Nobody is consulting the global citizens of this world. So if you want a universal declaration of rights of nature, we need a global citizen campaign to get those who can sign their signatures, and the others can have their voice recorded. But we need this global effort to bring the voices and the words of the people of this world to the table. It is also important that universal declaration of the rights of nature is insufficient. Earth Charter spelled out all these rights. If we don't complement the Universal Declaration of Rights of Nature, with making crimes against nature part of the equation. Because then persecution, and unfortunately persecution is necessary, because in a world that is driven by greed and profit. When we talk of sustainable human beings, we must rationally, of course, nobody wants to be unsustainable. But we also forget that the social media, the advertising media, is pushing us to eat junk food. And this food is now being more and more eaten by the 7 billion people who never had this food. And it's an environment of buy, and buy. In one day in China last week, $74 billion were raised by a singles day. So this consumerism, which is driving. So we need to be aware that it is beyond the science and everything else. We also need to tackle this era of advertising, marketing, which is counterproductive, not only for human beings, but also for nature. If we do not embrace the reality of what's going on, the sustainable development will not come. And we have lived for 70 years talking. I don't think we have 70 years ahead of us, which is the lifespan of the youth alive today. So it is an imperative. And today's webinar will hopefully throw some light, but please remember that the whole mission of Earth Odyssey in the final analysis is actions. Actions, how do we mobilize the global citizens? How do we mobilize and empower the youth? How do we inspire the women? How do we draw up a list of nature, and what do we do? I will stop there, and I will now call upon Ukpeme. Please, you have the floor.
Greetings. German to our discussion today is law. Law is an instrument of social change. There is a plethora of laws, and these laws regulate our activities, and our activities affect humanity and the earth system. It is imperative that we enhance laws that advance a balanced nature and a more harmonious and a more peaceful world. When we create these laws, or when these laws are created, they need to be reviewed because of the dynamics of life. And so these laws need to be reviewed constantly. Even though we have the laws created, we need to also review these laws. Laws that are repugnant to natural justice, repugnant to equity, repugnant to good conscience, and environmental safety must be repealed. Discriminatory practices must be eliminated. And so when we are talking about these laws, this is also one of the pathways for creating the solutions that we seek for sustainability. It is also a clarion call for activists, stakeholders, enthusiasts to create these solutions for the problems that we face. The problems that we face as humans and the problems that we face in the world. And in bringing these solutions to fruition, we talk about the combination of enabling factors, such as knowledge, as we are sharing knowledge here at this webinar. That's one of the factors. Knowledge, economy, policy framework, among others. So my comment here is majorly on the laws, because these laws govern our activities, and our activities affect nature, affect the earth, affect the planet, affect the system. So that harmony that we crave can be achieved if we harmonize our laws and our conducts. So basically, I would like to leave us with three things to ponder about. In our laws, we need to create the laws. We need to create laws that will positively impact nature. Laws that will ensure that harmony and peace ensue on our planet. These laws need to be constantly reviewed. When we create those laws, we don't just create them and just leave them there on the books. We have to constantly review these laws. And we must search our laws to ensure that discriminatory practices, even though they are laws, they may be discriminatory and they also may be repugnant to justice, as I earlier mentioned. Good conscience, equity, and if they are repugnant to environmental safety, those laws must be repealed. And so all those who are stakeholders, we are all stakeholders. The time for action is now, now, and now. Let us come together as global citizens, as concerned citizens, to look at our laws, to advocate laws, and to see how we can repeal laws that are detrimental to our progress. And when that is done, I believe that the sustainable development that we crave for global goals will strongly be achieved. So for now, I'll leave it there and urge us to ponder how we can approach this from the angle of the laws that we have, global laws, national laws, local laws. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ukpeme. Panel members, please introduce briefly yourself, because there are listeners out there not aware. So please do introduce yourself. I now call upon Anders Nilsson, please. You have the floor.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mahendra. It's a pleasure to participate in this. My name is Anders Nilsson. I'm a professor of chemical physics at Stockholm University and at Stanford University. And I'm probably most well known for my research on water, but I'm also doing work on artificial photosynthesis and many other aspects. I'm also a spiritual teacher, so it's a little bit unusual combination. So I'm going to share my screen now, and yes, I have a little short presentation prepared. I send it to Yuri if there will be a problem here, because I haven't done this in the past. Do you see my screen?
Yes. Yes, Anders.
Yes. So I'd like to talk a little bit quickly about water, life, nature, and humanity. And I think this is a very revealing picture. What we see on the left here is a biological cell, and actually almost all of nature today, including human, animals, plants, and so on, has a very similar cell structure. So the evolution on this planet is creating some sort of basic components of life. But 2/3 of the cell contains water, and 2/3 of the surface of the world, of Earth, is also water. So this is, of course, something very significant. And water is so unique in its physical properties. In this case, that ice floats. This is a picture actually of the Gulf Stream, creating that I'm currently in Sweden. I can live here. And all the unique properties of water, without them, we wouldn't exist. The natural world would not have developed. So it's something very unique. And of course, if you go really into the unique properties, looking into bio, this is a little bit of a simulation, how it could be inside a cell with different molecules, biological molecules, proteins, and so on. Everything is covered by water. So water is essential completely for life. And access to clean water is actually the number one for the challenge with climate change. And secondly, we as a humanity, we are destructing our oceans. Here's a picture of plastic in the ocean. You know that there are miles large islands of plastic floating around in the oceans. And these are decomposing into nanoparticles, getting into the circulation of all human life on this planet. It's very, very dangerous. Of course, I just give my picture here a little bit to humanity and nature, that today we have a profit demands, and often this is driven by shareholder. This is a little bit of a dialogue I had with Mahendra. I often say this. And of course, also the political system is driven for economical growth because the political leadership wants to be re-elected. And of course, maybe more a female principle. What about destroying in nature? Aren't we part of that? And here I think is one of the things that, repeating what other people are saying, we are part of nature. We have to realize that the natural world will thrive without humanity, but humanity will not survive without the natural world. And one thing I like to just mention, since I'm actually here in Sweden, Sweden is probably one of the more forthcoming countries in the world when it comes to environment and the natural world and also climate change. And one of the reasons is what this picture actually showing. Someone out walking in nature, and I did it myself yesterday between rain showers here in the fall, but the parking lot was full where I went to take my walk, because Swedish people are worshipping actually nature, and that is part of our culture. More people are worshipping nature than they're going to church. So it's something that we really need to bring into humanity, to really see nature, worship it, worship the ocean, and lastly, realize that we are part of the thriving natural world, and we have all reason to build up a oneness with all humanity, because if we win together with nature, we all win together, and then we all become one. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Anders. I want to add 2 points to what you said. One is that, of course, life began with one drop of water. But the experience of every human being, the greatest experience of harmony, was during the 9 months in the womb, a water womb. Anders is an example of an absolute scientist, a pure scientist for his fundamental work on water. We are talking about complex sciences today, and it is important that the scientists in this pure arena of science for the sake of science also make a transition to spirituality and the plight of nature and so on. And so Anders is one of those people who has done this, and we very much appreciate that, Anders.
Thank you very much for your kind words, Mahendra.
I now call upon Jean-Paul.
Well, thank you very much, Mahendra. I'm very pleased also with these introductions of Anders and yourself in the film. My name is Jean-Paul Claes. I'm the initiator or the father of a mindset which is developing around core human values, and even a democracy which is based on core human values. This is coined sustainocracy, sustainable human values. If we are looking at ourselves as that we may be destroying our environment, and that does eliminate our perspective of continuous life into the future for ourselves and our children. In fact, what we are realizing is that we are nature ourselves. Just like Anders said, we're not just part of nature. We are nature. And that is one of the revelations that I've had myself personally in my personal life, that at one stage, I disconnected from all this political and economic kind of working. And I started looking at myself and I said, wait a minute, we are molecules. Our body consists of our body consists of a whole load of microscopic elements, living elements. We are being sustained by viruses. We are sustained by bacteria in our intestine, on our skin. And this symbiosis between all these billions of living elements keep us alive, which is kind of an incredible type of action. How can I switch these... Yuri, how can I switch these? You have to do it because apparently I cannot now.
No, you have to control. It's your screen you are sharing. So anything you do on your screen, you can see here.
This is, and I have to go to my screen here. Are you?
Yeah.
Yeah, and then I can, if I go to...
Yeah, we see your mouse.
Oh, you see my mouse now? Okay.
That's
you
it.
See now? Okay, a city and everything. Okay. I go back to this because I live in a city, of course, and if I consider that particular awareness of myself as being nature, then this ecosystem that represents my own body, if I look at the need that I have to sustain that, I do have to take responsibility for that particular ecosystem from a health point of view. But if I'm in a system like a city, there's absolutely nothing to relate to because it's all dead elements. It's all piled up type of stones that we have. And we don't really have a relationship with anything else of nature than exactly ourselves. Our relationship with nature is what we need every day. Every day we have our core values, our basic needs. As we said, we consist of water. For instance, 60% of our body is water. We need to drink water every day. 3 kilos of water. We eat 1 kilo of healthy food, and that food has to be natural food. That has to be natural food because if we manipulate that food from an economic perspective to make it cheaper or whatever, then we take nutritious values away from it, which we normally need in 100%. And it has been scientifically proven that most of the food that has been processed in the supermarkets only has about 20% of the nutritious values that we need. So we need to eat about 5 times more than we normally should have done if we were active in a natural environment. This has a tremendous effect on our health. Our health is then in detriment. We produce illnesses as an ecosystem, which is shown in diabetes, for instance, or in cancer, or in other type of sicknesses. And that is simply because we don't take responsibility directly for the interaction that we have with nature for ourselves. Then we have healthy air. We breathe in oxygen. That oxygen comes from our surroundings, so we breathe out CO2. We do that in such an extent that we need about 30 kilos of healthy air every day. Now, what happens if we destroy this kind of environment? I live myself in a city like Eindhoven. In 2011, it was coined the smartest region of the world. But if I look at this region from an economic and political environment, over the last 300 years, we developed ourselves into a region which is extremely polluted. We are in the most polluted area of the Northwest European region. Then from a global warming point of view, where the Netherlands is so low that if the sea level is rising, we will have wet feet and we will have to move. So taking responsibility for nature should be a core value of our society because we are really destroying our own perspectives of life. And if I look at this, then I ask myself, what produced us? What made us the smartest region of the world? Is it because of economic excellence? Well, in my point of view, that is not smart. If we look at this picture, it is extremely stupid. And so I even wrote an article, which is how stupid can smartness be? And that it was published through universities, and it actually also made an impact on the people surrounding me. So what I said is, okay, I can understand this. I can understand the historical 300 years that we work towards this type of situation. And I can fight that old system. I can be angry at it because they're actually reducing my life expectancies for me and my children. But I can also put my energy in creating something new. And something new meant I started looking at those core values that I produced, like health. And I looked at nature, and I looked at nature being healthy all the time. It has its own healthcare system. Nature doesn't care really about anything else than unhealthy because it's in a circular system producing health all the time. Things that are not healthy are eliminated from nature, and it's creating space for a new phase of health. So what we are seeing here is that if we pollute ourselves, what we are doing is we're putting ourselves out of the process. As the picture, as the film said, nature doesn't care about all that. If we eliminate ourselves, that is our responsibility. So what I did is I said, okay, I invite those people, government, business people, citizens, and science around me. And I said, okay, that is one space. It's an economic space. We go to a human core value space. And if we look at those core values are natural values. So they're natural values which are exactly the same as a tree, as an animal, and somewhere around the world. All living species have that. And I asked government and business people and science to come together with me and actually work out those core human levels for ourselves, and at the same time change then our relationship with our natural environment. And they accepted. And here in the Netherlands, we now have communities working on air quality, on food resilience, and we are changing our relationship from a respectful relationship with our natural environment. And that is an invitation that I do to the rest of the world. Let's take responsibility ourselves. Let's invite government as an instrument. Let's invite business as an instrument, because they are willing to do so. They are being run by people who are, like you and me, equally vulnerable if we continue the way we do. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Jean-Paul. Sustainocracy has two words: sustainability and democracy. Without democracy, we cannot be sustainable. Eindhoven, Holland is very special, and you can see the bicycle and the adoption of that. I used to ride a bicycle in 1970 at university. After 45 years, 3 years ago, I went to see Jean-Paul. After 45 years, for the first time, I got onto a bicycle, and I rode it without falling off.
And we have photographs of that to prove it, huh?
Eindhoven is an amazing experience, but the challenge, and Jean-Paul, I want you to bring this subject up in our discussion, is how can the Eindhoven experience be carried as sustainability values to every town and city in the world, as Silicon Valley has done. Thank you so much for your presentation. Eugen, you have the floor.
Yeah. Thank you, Mahendra. Oh, okay. Yeah, my name is Eugen Oetringer. I'm German. I live in the Netherlands, and I've worked with Jean-Paul before. I want to tell a little bit about the background and the path I've run into. Up to the 1990s, I worked in a company that had a certain culture. One of the aspects of that was that root causes had to be solved, or that problems had to be solved at their root causes. Anything else was not an option. We also used phenomena like those that are now applied to get the coronavirus under control. And then the world changed. Best practices came. Different practices were brought into the companies and executed. And after a while, we lost the culture. Well, I was one of the few who refused to let go what worked. And that has led to some amazing things. I was able to find innovative solutions in different areas, where I didn't have experience. And one of the examples was, well, in my family, a family member developed ADHD, or daily emotional outbursts, and had greatest difficulties learning to read. It's called dyslexia. And the doctor said, we are sorry, we cannot help you any further. And at that point in time, I started reapplying the practices of the lost culture. And the result is, in no time, therapy, an existing one, was found that delivered the needed results. Instead of daily ADHD incidents, we have now one in about 13 years. And he was able to learn reading within 6 weeks, all of a sudden. what made that possible were the same phenomena that were used, or are being used right now again, to get the coronavirus under control. And I tried to get attention for that. I also went to brain research, but the result was consistently that, well, we get stuck in the system. And eventually, in advanced networks, it turned out there are countless innovative solutions around for the big problems of today's world, for the sustainable development goals. But it appears the higher the potential value, the quicker they get stuck. I personally stopped pursuing my innovations and asked the question, what are the key root causes that prevent us from getting these innovative solutions out and implemented? And that led to a couple of, or just a few root causes of highest impact, and in turn, those led to solutions that partially exist today or are simple to do. So what I'm going to share quickly is one of those examples, and that is the example of phenomena. Hold on a second. Come on. No, hold on. So you should see my screen now coming up. What is a phenomena? One more click. Phenomena are things that occur. One of the phenomena we are all too familiar with is when the temperature crosses the freezing point of water. We can either swim off it in the summer or walk on it in the winter. And when we now look into the phenomena applied with Corona, well, the same applies here as well. They are hard as well. If we miss them, we get hit by them, like this exponential curve, and running out of capacity in health services. But when we use them, we can use other phenomena like the capacity bottleneck phenomena and apply the practices they provide us. And in the background, here was the tipping point phenomena, which is the same as with water. Practices working well before didn't work anymore when the tipping point was crossed. And when we look now into organization, well, the curve looks like this. We have been ignoring these phenomena for about 2 decades, have created enormous bureaucracy, which now stands in the way of getting the needed solutions, the needed innovations through the system and implemented. So in turn, this means huge opportunity if you are only using this this practice again, learning how to recognize phenomena and using their practices. And from that, I'm convinced there's still plenty of opportunity to speed up things drastically so we can have a prospering future. And with that, I would like to leave it to the next speaker. Thank you. Mahendra?
Sorry. Eugen, you mentioned a very important point, which is intelligent innovations. And I want to highlight applied science, because throughout this 9-month pandemic, we have not looked at options as you explained this one. So this is a very important area, and I hope in the discussion we pick it up. I now call upon, is it Heiner, are you next? Oh, Joerg, you're next.
Yes. Okay, so my name is Joerg Altekruse, and I'm a filmmaker like Yuri, producing mainly films about nature and technology and human interaction with technology and nature over the course of 40 years now. And when I reached a certain point, a tipping point, I made a series with my Australian colleague about the tipping point of climate. And this was a tipping point for my mind, because we were so right and we were so full of emotions about what we found out going around the planet, that we didn't recognize that nobody would like to listen or would like to follow our path. This is the difference between being right and being recognized. So this was in 2015 when we decided to restart the entire thing and say, let's take young people into the equation and let us older experienced filmmakers inspire them to become filmmakers themselves, become storytellers on themselves. And that's how Youth for Planet started in 2015, when the SDGs were started, when we went to Greenland. And I'll show you in a second. Please share my screen. What I have done in Greenland to get started with films in Paris to support part of the process in Paris in 2015. So let me just, I have to change screen. Okay. So when you look at this, this is the power of storytelling, what we are talking about. And I took this bunch of young people, 16 to 21, to Greenland to be eyewitnesses of climate change and see how this melted down the ice sheet of Greenland by 10 meters every year. This is how Youth for Planet started. This generation knows how to communicate, how to make films, how to take photos with electronic devices and smartphones. To give you an example how successful we work, we went into a school in Hamburg and inspired kids in the age group of 10 to 14 to start a film process and find a topic. They found the topic of plastic, and they did research on plastic using their mobile phones, creating films about it. They started to create a campaign and a show and a rap song about plastic to actually show that you can make change happen. Okay. What happened here? Okay. There's no room to live in the plastic world. What we did was empowering these processes to co-create, make, and share, and now use mobile phones to help young people to create stories together. And you may not know outside of Europe the little country of Luxembourg, but Luxembourg really made a change. Some 3 years ago, I was invited to speak to some people in Luxembourg from the Ministry of Environment, and they said, please come and make change happen here. So this started a new whole experience in a tiny country, and now we have accepted to take this entire country onto a journey into the transition of sustainability and a new kind of economy by inspiring kids and by letting them do the research and find out what to do next. So this works with very young people. And I show you this group of 6 to 8 year old scouts that have developed a film. Cars are their problem.
Why? Because if not, that would do a lot of damage to the earth.
So this is how they started to become car sharing experts, and the main thing is they told their parents, and they showed this film to their parents and said, we want to change now. Please collect us, not individually, but take 3 or 4 at the same time, not 15 like they show in the example. They made it very drastic. But take at least 3 or 4 of us and bring us to school or to the scouts meeting together. So this is a part of the process where people start changing their mind by empowering themselves, by finding out, by becoming researchers and storytellers. In the background, there's something that is very important to me, because it's the cooperation between the I, the individual that has a certain topic on its mind, and this individual then connecting and interacting with the team of others to find out that they share the same vision. And so by cooperating and learning and interacting, they create a dynamic balance of working together. And I use this triangle. It's based on TCI, teaching theme-centered interaction. I tell the kids how to resolve conflicts, how to resolve issues that come along their way, because then they see, okay, I stand here and I have to take care of myself, of the I, in order to create a good and functioning we at the same time. So these are part of the principles in the background. This is the dynamic collaboration. You find a common topic as a team, and you find your personal topic, and you bring this all together. And the main issue is there, when you interact with your group, you have to respect others, and you have to resolve any kind of conflict. They take precedence, and when you do that, you become your own chairperson. So when you get this empowerment to become your own chairperson, then you can actually work in a team together in the best possible way. So that's part of the concept behind the Youth for Planet process. And that it works shows this little 7-year-old who just had her first film screened at a festival in Metz in France.
Des paniers pour récolter l'huile, et cela peut mettre des espèces.
So this is really possible, that the very young go on stage and stand up for their ideas. And the principles within that, the motor driving this SDG storytelling is the and, but, therefore process. It's just a logical conclusion. This logic says, I describe a situation, I have a question that is not answered yet, I go on a quest to answer this question, and at the end, after all going a long way, I have something found that is my personal therefore, and that is directly inspiring action. And that's something that we teach along the way in all the processes that we run. And so this application really inspires the kids to get something done in the environment. And what we do right now is actually that we can have people in the streets and connect themselves with the people in the society, make a contract between, let's say, school and the mayor of the city, and allow the kids to present their ideas out in the streets. And the stories can be made anyhow. It could be a documentary. It could be like in this example.
This is Bob. For many years, he has been living happily on a small farm in A country, where he produces potatoes, carrots, and tomatoes. Close to his farm, there are many other farms just like his. Interested in the farming land?
Okay. We can stop now.
Thank you, Joerg.
Okay, sorry. It's a bit difficult to present it like this. So eventually, this will end in using digital tools to allow this to happen in many more countries, and that's where we actually stand by going around to other countries and being inspired by them. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Joerg. I've attended hundreds of food security summits around the world in 50 years. And thank you for bringing children and youth into this presentation, because in these summits, there has never been the voice of the hungry or the face of the hungry. In a way, Joerg, you are a godsend to us, because this is exactly what is the end point of the Earth Odyssey mission, is to collect evidence of videos sent in by youth and children from around the world to be uploaded from their telephone, from their mobile phone onto the Earth Odyssey. So we very much hope that we can partner with you. I now call upon Heiner. Please, Heiner, you have the floor.
Hello?
Very well.
Can you hear me? Perfect. Can you see my slides? Oh, yes. So I'm Heiner Benking in Berlin. I'm somehow in the advisory board and ambassador for Joerg, for Youth for Planet. And we introduced with the Vision Summit at the UN in Bonn for the Vision Television, UN television, all this work bringing the youth and the elders and all the others together. And for that, I'm with Joerg doing, let me try to go to sharing now. Yes, so I wanted to first say the issues we are tackling here are very, very complex, and they are perplexing. And the danger, we do it in a dualistic sense, and being right and wrong, and it's black and white, or in a sectorial sense, that we are just in one filter bubble and just do information and education or just active process, but not bringing it together. And with the traditions, with a foreword from Paul Ray, we did this visualization with Cobb McDonald, where I told him to include the staying in touch with the whole, because all the things we are doing have to be integrated. And that's why I created with Joerg 4 futures. So at that time, I was more Science for Future than Fridays for Future, to really look into what are entrepreneurs doing, what makers are doing. And so I'm a map and model maker. and we do since more than 10 years with the Entrepreneurship Summit in Berlin at Free University, open spaces to bring the founders and creative people together. And there we introduce systems and globe entrepreneurship, because this entrepreneurship in one box, it's just a bore. So I'm working here with youth, but with community and culture, doing European vocational projects, also Erasmus 4, to bring the youth together to learn from other countries coming with their telephone boxes what the skills are. Are you a plumber? Are you in steel? Are you in solar? Are you in wood or glass? And there we work since 10, 15 years on community building and peacemaking, having the elders read for the young and take the book as an attractor in the community. 17 boxes, I think, only in Berlin, in certain places in Europe, to really come to a common language, because we are all so much in isolation. I presented last week already that my work with the UN after Rio was very much looking into the common languaging. We have big problems that the SDGs are in isolation. When you see this, it's my buttons here at the reverse, then it's the SDG 16 and 17 as meta goals. And goal 17 says to support the means of implementation and not just partnership, bringing NGOs and stakeholders together. So you see, I had this opportunity to long look into what are the central issues of development and environment. And in the original sense, it was together. Rio was still environment and development, but when we develop and support integrated solutions like the Sea Harmony Rift project, then it's very, very hard to find the administrative and funding structures to really help a variety of goals. And that's why I liked Eugen's presentation very much. We have to go to the leverage points and to the deep drivers and to the blind spots. And this blind spotting is very, very important for me. And we did it with the Millennium Project, following since 15 years now, the 15 global challenges and how they are connected. And this we have also done in Nicosia with the Future World Center and Youth already on the MDG some years ago. So you see, my work is, and I dedicate this to Alexander Christakis, being a UNDP town and regional planner, to really integrate the scales, because the isolation of an island or of a country is not enough. We have to really do mind gymnastics and link the issues top down and bottom up. And we have done it with the UN on the dialogue of civilizations. So all this is there for you to read. We do it around religions and cultures, around ecological justice, where I met first Polly Higgins, talking about ecocide. We sometimes need new words. And what I did with Joerg is a summary of what we have known already for a global change exhibition 1990 in the German Chancellery with the White House Conference. And earlier this year, we celebrated 30 years, Challenges, Science and Politics. And we are presently producing a film to look to the action potential for the next 30 years, because there are so many options and we need to find the right approach. Now I want to be a little bit controversial. When Mahendra approached me and I looked at the program, I said, This is an interesting guy. He is daring something. Does he have a mandate? And then I took at all the words in his schedules, and I said, well, I subscribe to them, but I have my own words. So my words you see as my hashtags below are very intellectual, but also pragmatic, like space and model words. And it comes from my background. The two UN people I learned most from were working in the 60s and early 70s in the UN, one with a general research unit and one with a translation unit, because the problems are not just between languages, they are also between scales, and which scales and proportions and consequences are connected. So you see, I'm a very, how do you say, perplexing person. But when I found the wisdom of the Brahmins from Friedrich Rückert translated, he was a contemporary of Goethe, and I will not going to read that as it looks like the time was already running. But I found this old East-Western dialogue on making star maps for knowledge and moving boundaries. This is me. I'm bridging and putting down and reflecting on mindsets and paradigms. And I think all this data isolation and big data is bullshit when even values in isolation are meaningless. So I have a few ideas on how to bridge symbol, icon, and index, cultural expressions. All my work needs to develop an extra macro view. You have to be specialist. We call it T personality, standardization and harmonization, and then being a generalist and a specialist at the same time. All this work on my work on citizen sciences is all available. The crisis of how we present, how we think, how we share, how we negotiate has been ignored. This is 20 years old, and we played, as you have seen here, we don't have only one puzzle, we need many puzzles. So we played with puzzles and flats, and how to bring a new covenant together, and how to work with young people on out-of-the-box thinking and paradigm mapping, or how to develop our new cognitive potentials and our ways of seeing and sensing and sharing, like we can see not only in the deep sea. So you see, I have much, much more. A visualizer did a lot of work with me about why we need external workplaces of the mind. But the time is up. I'm very sorry, but this is life. And I feel there is much more to explore in further sessions. Thank you very much, and thank you for rumbling on too long. Hello?
The fact that you, Heiner, came after Anders, Jean-Paul, Eugen, and Joerg, the ending with all the experience you have, you wrote a wonderful article on the 30 visions of sustainable development. And one of the words that is in your text compared to the long text that I have is wisdom. And that is the driving force. And when you mention SDGs, this is a message to all the listeners who are out there. We are forgetting the interlinkages of SDGs. And this is the point that comes out of your own presentation, Heiner, that unless we focus on the interlinkages, because that's what's going to drive the progress on achieving those. So now, to continue, we have two more speakers. And why I kept these two speakers relatively at the end Ukpeme is part of the secretariat, but why I let you all men speak is the simple fact that women and youth, and they are the last in our line of speakers. So, Amarainen, I ask you, please, you have the floor.
Hello, thank you very much for this opportunity. Yeah, I'm Arahmaiani. I'm an artist, activist, environmental, social, and cultural, and I'm also a writer and a poet. I've been teaching in Passau University in last 8 years in Germany, in Department of Southeast Asia, Faculty of Philosophy. All right, so I would like to, one more important thing, then you will understand my kind of way of working or strategy. I'm Indonesian, but I have been living nomadically for more than 30 years. So I live in various countries beside Indonesia. In Europe, in Germany, in Holland, I used to study there, Australia, Malaysia, Thailand, China. Anyway, so why I said that, because I want to now talking about my project that I have been doing in Tibet Plateau. Of course, I've been working in Indonesia too, in Germany, on issue of environment. But I think the one in Tibet Plateau is a successful kind of project, and also interesting place because it is a very significant area known as Asia Water Tower, because more than 1.5 billion Asian living from the water coming from the plateau. Around 10 biggest rivers in Asia continent headwater is in Tibet Plateau. And now with this situation today, climate change, this is also under threat, as also the plateau known as third pole, one of the largest ice field on Earth. But now melting, the glacier melting rapidly, creating catastrophe like floods, landslide all over the continent. So when I stranded up there, 2010, after the area hit by a huge earthquake, more than 10,000 people died, and the area was like destroyed. I stranded in Kham area of Tibet, or Qinghai Plateau. And this is also a special area because this is a confluence of three huge rivers, Yangtze, Mekong, and Yellow River. But Yangtze, I show you here, is most significant because in China, they are building up the largest dam in the world, right, to divert the Yangtze River up to the north, because the area of Beijing now is already becoming deserted. So they are going to redirect the flow of the river up to the north. But with this climate change, experts predicted that by 2030, if there's no effort in dealing with the problem, the water springs up there will be dry up. So that's actually my first reason why I work up there since 2010 is to, yeah, do something about it. Okay, so there we have been doing a lot of things up there. In the first 5 years, I was allowed to work there with the Tibetan without with the condition that I couldn't get any support or funding from outside. I just had to go there and work with the people there with any resources available there, which was not easy at the beginning. But somehow the monastic group, the Yellowhead or the Galupa sect that I work with, was very supportive. And the lamas especially is very supportive. So that's why I managed to do this. In the first 5 years, we managed to plant 230,000 trees. This is a way to preserve the water, right? And then reviving organic farming, reviving nomadic culture and lifestyle, and managing the garbage and recycle, and then managing the water and creating alternative energy from the water. Yeah, I have to explain a little bit that when I got there, the people there, they don't produce food anymore, and they don't drink the water from their sources. They drink bottled water coming from China, and also the food they eat a processed food. So that's really like a nightmare, right? Anyway, so the project anyway being accepted, then they started planting their own food again, and like the nomad go back to nomadic lifestyle again. You know, many young people, this is also a problem of urbanization. In China also is happening, of course, like in Indonesia too. So many young people especially just move to big cities. But okay, now it's already better because many of them returning to their village and living as a nomad again. Yeah, before it was forbidden actually by the Chinese government because maybe it's hard to control nomadic way of life. So they send the nomad to city and let them work in the factories, but it didn't really work actually. They can't really adapt themselves, and then they become like drunkard and like that. So sad. But anyway, after we started this project, so the situation is improving. And yeah, anyway, now they can produce their own food and using the water again for whatever they need, and also alternative energy. That's after 2015. We are very, very lucky because the Chinese government approve and support the project. Yeah, so this is a good kind of achievement, but still we have to be careful still and working until now, because this area of the Kham area of Tibet also known as, I mean, the scientists call it the future of China. You know why? Because this is the most rich area of natural resources, especially the mineral and the so-called rare earth. This is really like the place for it. But as I explained earlier, this is also a very significant area that we need to protect. So that's why I have been working there since that time on until today. only this year I cannot go due to the pandemic. So I have to wait. Hopefully next year I can go back there. Maybe that's a bit of information from me. I hope this is can be inspiring because I tried to find a solution to our problems, and I think Tibet project is one example that it's can be done if we are working with the community together. So empowering the community is one of my major point. That's what I have been doing in last almost 30 years in various places in this planet. Yeah. Okay. Thank you for time.
Thank you very much, Arahmaiani. The heritage of humanity is art, literature, poetry. And here we have one person with this heritage, plus environment, plus humanitarian. So it's a pleasure to have you. And I think this experience of Tibet and all the other work you've done in these 30 years will be very useful for us. Now, if we move on, welcome back, Kehkashan. You and Tania have the floor. Can I just, before you start, Yuri, are we going to overrun a little bit and I can ask Jojo Mehta to join us if she's available? Yuri?
Yeah, we can do that, yes.
All right, thank you.
Kehkashan, you have to unmute yourself.
Yes, Tania will take the floor.
Am I audible?
Yes.
Okay. Hello everyone, I am Tania Islam, a chapter head of Green Hope Bangladesh, and I am delighted to connect with you from Dhaka. I will now show my screen. Bangladesh is a land of rivers and forests with almost 11% of land area covered by forests, the largest being the Sundarbans, the world's largest mangrove forest, home to the endangered Royal Bengal tiger. Bangladesh is the 8th most populous country in the world and is also one of the most densely populated. As a result, there is a daily conflict of humans and nature aggravated by social and economic challenges, as well as impacts of frequent natural disasters. COVID-19 has pushed back a lot of the progress achieved in the last 5 years, and like elsewhere in the world, the most severe impact has been on vulnerable sections of civil society, on women and girls, those in slums and villages, and thousands have lost their sources of income. Children have dropped out of school, human trafficking has increased, and like every year, the monsoons have added to the misery with floods, devastating hundreds of villages. It is against this backdrop that Green Hope is working in the slums of Dhaka as well as in villages, providing education to children, organizing handouts of rice, lentils, and oil, teaching them about sanitation and hygiene, distributing masks, soaps, and water filters. We are also implementing a skill-based program in villages on sustainable agriculture, poultry, and fishing, thereby creating a local circular economy that will establish long-term resilience in these marginalized communities. Our goal is to create a peaceful society where no one is left behind through harmony between humans and nature. In a densely populated and largely agrarian society like Bangladesh, we need robust infrastructure and long-term policies based on the principles of sustainability, such as creation of local circular economies. We are extremely vulnerable to natural disaster, and there needs to be a defined disaster risk resilience mechanism that engages all stakeholders, beginning at a grassroots level. In this context, environmental conservation plays a critical role. The impacts of both flooding and droughts can be lessened and mitigated if we reverse the current trend of unchecked exploitation of nature, cutting down forests, polluting and killing mangroves, which are critical not only for providing livelihoods to local indigenous communities, but also act as natural barriers to sea storms, managing waste disposal so that our water sources don't get polluted. Arsenic poisoning is a major threat, and the only way to mitigate this is by reducing human-induced pollution. Education plays a critical role in engaging all sections of civil society, especially those who are marginalized, and this is our focus at Green Hope. We are influencing behaviors and mindsets, starting with those who are furthest first, building bridges of inclusivity so as to move towards a harmonious, peaceful society. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tania. Bangladesh is a wonderful example of a country of extremes, and yet, it's managed to make ends meet. So I think the experience is, whether we go back 20, 30 years to the cyanide days, and now what is happening with the flooding, and what is happening with the shrimp farmers who export to the UK, and what happened to them vis-a-vis rice. So I think all these are extremely important for the food sector, and agriculture, of course, is a major, major, major component of what we are doing in nature. So thank you very much, and we very much, Kehkashan, we want to work with Green Hope because we have hope and we want to be green. So we look forward to working with you. I'm going to open up the discussion. Perhaps Jojo Mehta is going to join us. We are 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. We will. Okay, so let's see if Jojo joins, but let's open up for discussion. And if everybody is willing and able, would be nice if we could perhaps talk for 20 minutes or so, because what has come out of this discussion, there are some wonderful points. And perhaps if you allow me, I would like to at least put one point on the table. Ukpeme mentioned laws. When human survival is at risk, can we not, human beings, be rational? Surely laws are necessary to persecute, but I think this rationality of human beings is going to be very, very central. And how can we arouse this? So that is one of the points that I noted down. But we open up for discussion. Please, who is next? Don't tell me you're all tired. It's been such a mind-blowing discussion, and I want all of you, please, to send us your summary points, because what you have all been speaking of is very integral to the mission of Earth Odyssey, and we want to find out how we can come to the same table. Jean-Paul, you have the floor.
All right, thank you very much, Mahendra. I'm reacting to your statement about laws. Indeed, the laws have been developed. If you look at the historical context, there has where we come from, then we are very much dependent on a political economic system which came out of cityfication, as I would say, the industrial process. And all the laws are somehow defined around that particular system. We have actually created wars to get into some social rights or human rights that were brought into our constitutions. But when we are trying to fight those constitutions, many times we are in the field of that political economic reality. So when I ask the people to come to the reality of sustainable human progress as sustainocracy is, and they accept that, then we create a precedence that with that acceptance, they are confining themselves, or they're putting themselves in the context of human and natural basic laws, which have not been written down, but they are actually there because that is what nature works on. Then we can look at those who actually do accept that invitation and ask those who do not accept that invitation, why not? And if they are not, and they must have a very good story, and they probably don't, and then we can actually blame them. But if we do not create an alternative, it's extremely difficult to use the old laws against the people who actually made them.
Heiner, you have the floor.
Arahmaiani, what you said was like a cut in my heart. I fully resonated with you, and I think we have to come to action also on the regional and national and global level. You see, there were town planners who did with the Dalai Lama the high plateau of the Himalayan to have a peace region. And they did it also for the whole Netherlands. It was called the Green Heart of Holland. All this was there in the 80s and 90s. And then developers come and screw up all these very positive ideas. When I was with about 150 United Nations town and state planners in Beijing in 91, believe that, that's nearly 30 years ago, all these people around the Beijing and China Business Technology Transfer Center were ready for it, but then money came in, developers came in, and they give money through banks, dubious banks, like the Deutsche Bank in those days, and they have only greed. And they never heard about needs and harmony and harmonization. So thank you very much. It must have been a travel like a nomad all over the planet, and being a nomad of the air and before a nomad of the sands, I think I really loved what you said.
Eugen, you are next.
And me.
Yeah. What I really liked, or from what I've seen here, is this. From my system level perspective, what I experienced there are many, many people, many, many projects that kind of work in isolation. But that's extremely difficult to be moved forward. And what I see now here is different pieces coming together to which one whole and complete thing could be created. And well, basically that's one of the outcomes of what I've been doing. That is, if you really want to move forward, we need to find an integral way, bringing the key players who really can get things forward quickly together and support them.
Yeah, thank you very much.
That's
Thank
my
you.
2
Joerg,
cents.
you're next.
Well, actually, taking all what you said into account, which really deeply impressed me, I think that our utopia that we are working on is really deep global justice. So it's something that is the basic of treatment of people, respecting them, At the same time, that is the rule of law, of course. So you need laws to make that happen, of course, but you need to give people power first. So I think meeting other people on eye level, making this an issue and a topic on a global scale, I think that's essential. And this is not only people from other countries, it's people within countries, and it's young people and old people. They all need to meet on this eye level in order to create this co-creative change together. Otherwise, it will not be possible. It will not work. No, I think that's a new normal to work on justice. It's not environmental so much. It's a justice question. No?
Thank you, Joerg. You know, when you talk of global justice, 4 countries with a population of, I believe it's about 700 million, have contributed more than 50% of the cumulative carbon emissions which are sitting up in the atmosphere, which drives climate change. And we don't talk about that. We are pointing fingers at China, that China produces more than any other country, but don't forget 1.3 billion people. So when you look at per capita, somebody produces 20, Europe produces 5, developing countries are at 1 or 2. So we need this common but differential responsibility. Any other point, please? Please, Arahmaiani.
Okay, thank you. I just want to add one more point. I said something about empowering the community, right? Actually, also, I think it is also important to relate to the local culture. Although, of course, we need to reinterpret it within this context, this modern and environmental context. And that's what I have been doing also in Tibet, for example, but also in other places. I have to learn about their culture and working through their kind of understanding. By the way, Heiner, I learned about Tibetan Buddhism actually from His Holiness the Dalai Lama. He's my teacher. Yeah. So, yeah, I think that's very important point because, you know, in Indonesia and at the other places, there are many indigenous groups that has been, you know, treated unjustly, and their kind of environment has been grabbed. I mean, forests, for example, has been grabbed. This is happening everywhere, right? So, but actually their kind of culture usually based on this harmony with nature. So actually maybe a lot of young people, these young people, learn again about traditional culture.
Thank you so much.
Could I say something, Mahendra? Mahendra, this is
yes,
Anders.
sorry, Anders, I didn't see your hand. Please.
Yes, I think one essential piece. I've been thinking about this a lot. I've written a new book a lot about that as well, and that is to ask the following question, which is currently not debated in the society: what in our humanity is it making us to be willing to sacrifice the wellness of the natural world and other human beings for us to come on top, to be thinking that we deserve more than others, that we think that we can destroy nature? What is the driving force within humanity that is allowing, first of all, allowing that to happen, but also all of us on an individual level are also accommodating to that aspect? I often call it the false self, which is, of course, going into more a spiritual aspect of where we are going as a humanity. And I think until we address that question properly, which actually goes all the way back to all the, let's say, masters that create religions. But if we go back to that aspect, if we don't find a good dialogue about this particular aspect, what makes us to be willing to sacrifice the wellness of others. If we don't start to ask that question, we will always go around this and never really find a proper solution. And I think that's the key.
Thank you, Andres. We are always talking about science and technology to solve all our crisis problems. We forget the humanities.
Yes.
And I think this is a very important factor to bring to the table in our discussion. Tania? Go ahead, Tania.
Thank you. We are in the midst of the biggest crisis of our lifetimes, and the end is now nowhere in sight. Even if we do get a vaccine, it will be the developed nations who will have access to it first. The agony and misery of the marginalized will continue unless we start doing things differently. The SDGs provide a well-defined roadmap for addressing the challenges and issues that face our world. They provide solutions that take into account the intersectionalities of nature and humans, providing pathways of conservation and development that build on each other's strength symbiotically. As young people, we play a critical role in its acceleration and implementation at a grassroots level. At the same time, we must continue to collaborate and influence policymaking within our zones of influence so that we get just, equitable policies that reduce inequality and create a life of dignity for all through respect for humanity and for nature. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tania. The point you made about COVID-19 and this vaccine. United States is buying up the vaccines. Europe is also in line to buy up. And here is an example that developing countries, maybe in 1, 2, 3 years will have access. But the world needs, the United States and Europe needs to realize as long as there are pockets of COVID-19 in this world, no one is safe. And we need this global effort and fair distribution. And you really point out, and that's the case, in fact, across the board when we are dealing with these issues. Can I put Ukpeme a little bit on the spot? Because, sorry, when you made space for Kehkashan, we said you are an ambassador of peace, you are a lawyer, and no wonder you made that statement on law, which I support. But laws and persecution, when human survival is at risk, is there no rationality? Is there no humanity in people to realize that we must do something from within themselves? Because the future of our children is at risk, and we don't see this. So I want you to mention something on the rationality issue vis-a-vis having the laws of behavior. Please, Ukpeme, please.
Thank you, Dr. Shah, Ukpeme Okon here, and thank you for your brief description about what I do. So to your question, I think that the laws, basically the rule of law presupposes that human rights must be paramount in whatever we are doing, and so we have to uphold the human rights in whatever form, regardless of the who it is, regardless of race, regardless of color, age. So far as someone is human, we have to respect the rights and we have to protect their rights. And so what the law does is to ensure that in protecting the rights of people, we follow we follow precedents. We ensure that we ensure that activities or we ensure that policies that are repugnant, as I mentioned before. So we ensure that anything that is just repugnant to human rights are universal. So regardless of a location, regardless of our countries, it applies to everyone. So our local laws have to align with universal laws on human rights protection. So in terms of dignity, in terms of repugnant behaviors, in terms of injustices, in terms of inequalities, we must always have as our prime importance the protection of human rights. The protection of human rights, protection of laws, whether they are constitutions, whether they are local laws, whether they are policies, and prosecution. Because when there is no, sometimes we say when there is no justice, there is no peace. And so when these laws are not adhered to, when these laws are not obeyed, then there will be instances of injustice. And when there's injustice, peace is dismal. So the rule of law and the role of law as an instrument of social change and as an instrument for a peaceful society has to take prime importance. And as I mentioned earlier, legislative advocacy is one of the pathways for us to ensure that a balanced nature and a harmonious, peaceful world is achieved. And we can get involved, whether we are legislators or whether we are citizens, whatever capacity we can get involved. How can we do that? I'll end with just 3 points. Mobilize people, access these lawmakers, and we can campaign in whatever capacities we can. There are so many ways of campaigning, making phone calls, writing letters, leveraging social media, organizing meetings such as we are doing here. So make sure that these laws are potent to achieve the sustainability that we crave. We need to think about the laws. We need to create laws, review laws, and we need to repeal laws as necessary. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ukpeme. Yuri?
Yes.
Yuri?
Yeah.
Yeah, you have the floor.
Yeah, just after finishing the webinar, I have to go out and vote. It's election day in Brazil. We're going to elect our mayors. And I like what Ukpeme is saying, but the thing is, we're seeing in Brazil, and I think it echoes in other countries, is more and more organized crime is putting out candidates. That's what we're seeing here now. That's a scary situation. We already have the big corporations make their case and electing senators, congressmen, even presidents to defend their rights, to have profits for their shareholders against, of course, caring for nature. And now we're seeing here, I'm sure in America and other places we're going to be seeing it, if not already happening. We have this organized crime putting candidates and electing them. So it's really a fight. And I think the idea Heiner gave to give more to give the NGOs and people who make the difference some spotlight to get them together. Maybe Odyssey could do that. I mean, it's one of the cases we could organize more and more meetings with people who are doing things nicely out in the world and don't have all this light on them, and can share their ideas and polarize it. So I think it's a good thing we're doing now, all of us here, trying to talk and get our ideas together and make something that really can change the world. Okay, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. I just want to say on behalf of Earth Odyssey, as we come to the end of this session, that everyone who has been on the panel today have an amazing contribution to help us in Earth Odyssey to streamline and really, over the next 2.5 years, help us organize these panels, these videos, these actions, putting youth, women and men at the core of it. And every one of you has amazing experience, amazing contribution, and we very much look forward to work with you, not only informally in webinars, but I hope very much formally. So thank you very much. It has been a mind-opening discussion and the ideas you have floated. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And look forward to seeing you soon. please send us summary of your points, and we will bind you into the system with that formal input to us. And Joerg, a personal request to you, please, as soon as possible, you and Yuri start to exchange ideas and invite Heiner to sit on the periphery, because he will guide the vision. Thank you so much.
Thank you all. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you too.
Bye-bye.
Bye.